episode of a MyData webinar. Today we have a guest speaker, Paul Meyrat. I'll introduce him later on with a very interesting topic about data literacy. So very glad to have you here, Paul. Thank you very much. As you might know, MyData is a non-profit organization which initially started in Finland, but which is now a global organization. And they are focusing mainly on data privacy topics. And I'm representing the MyData Zurich Hub. And this chart is just to remind you that personal data is everywhere. And today the focus will be on public services data. Here comes my fun slide, to be honest. It's actually a very old slide from MyData with a few comments from my side. So if you think how the personal data was treated at the very beginning, it was a pretty chaotic situation. It was very API-centric. Everybody was talking to everybody, but it was a lot of interoperability issues. So I call that the data stone age. And then the big techs came in with their huge server farms, and they started to have the data more from a commercial aspect. And I call that the data middle age, and where we want to go. And that's also behind a lot of laws which are coming into force now, is a more human-centric approach where the data of the individuals is actually belonging to them and they have a right on their data. So it's privacy by design, basically. MyData plays an important role, and I would specifically like to point out the concept of MyData operators, which is some sort of a fiduciary of the data of the respective individuals mainly, because for more complex data, such as health data, in principle, you could load it on your PC, you could save the PDFs there, but as soon as we go into structured data, it's getting increasingly complex, and you need somebody who is doing that on your behalf, to whom you can trust. Like you have your money on your bank, you will have your data in such a fiduciary role, and that's basically what's behind the MyData operators. For those of you who are interested, you find more information behind the links which you see on the slides here. And I'll put the slides on the show notes anyway, so you have access to that afterwards. Then, with that being a MyData event, I would like to point out the MyData conference, which takes place once a year, besides some other events in Helsinki, end of May, beginning of June. So for those of you who are interested, who would like to meet an interesting community, that's the event to go. I've been attending last year's, and beside the conference, I can say that Helsinki is also a very nice place. And here is basically the MyData Zurich Hub. And we were founded in 2019. And the founder or the initiator was André Gollier, who is still on our management team. And we also have Jonas Bertschi, who is also coming from the Swiss Data Alliance, and basically adding to our management team. I'm organizing most of the events, but we are in close cooperation with the Swiss Data Alliance. So we are on their website, and we split up. So the Swiss Data Alliance is more focused on policy making. So they are in Bern, and they will hear a few words about that later on. And we are more focusing on classical hands-on experiences. And other than that, we are actually very closely coordinating. And you can find us on MyData on LinkedIn, and as well as on YouTube. So here you can see how it works. We are set up as a company technically on LinkedIn. We have our main page, which is MyData. We have some sort of a secondary page, which is more focusing on local data ecosystems, such as open government data and similar topics. And the privacy topics are more on the main page on MyData. If you want to be posted, follow us on the main page, and then you will get the notifications for upcoming events. The second thing is the YouTube channel. So the events which we are doing are recorded. Typically, there is a long version. We are now starting with a short version as well. And we have some events where we do short videos. You can find it on this YouTube channel, and as we are covering a number of topics, we have a few playlists where you find the videos tagged with the respective topics. So if you want to be posted on our updates, subscribe to the channel, and then you get the updates as we upload them. Typically, it takes about a week or two for our videos to edit after the recording, so it's not immediately available. With that said, I would like to announce a few upcoming events. We have one mid-March with Roche about real-world health data, which is an increasingly important topic because we have studies which only cover 4% of the actual health data, but there's a lot of health data which would be available, and Damian Page is the specialist for this topic. So for those of you who are interested in healthcare data, you're very welcome. Then we have an event from the Swiss Data Alliance. It's Forschung ohne Daten, and it's about a law which is coming into place, the law for secondary data use, Sekundärnutzung von Daten, and with Matthias Michel, who is actually one of the initiators, and André Gollier was also very heavily involved. That's a physical event in Zurich. Then we have another event about city sandboxing from Kaiserment from Tallinn, interestingly. So they have a prototype city, quite interesting, where they are doing a number of experiments. And on 18th of April, André Gollier will present the way to a Swiss data space, specifically in the tourism section, and it will heavily rely on this law which is coming into place. So Andre is really the specialist. So for those of you who want to hear more, you're very welcome to join there. You find all these events on our LinkedIn sites. We have a few more topics, data literacy. Whenever we have a chance, we'll do some webinars on these topics. Then we have some joint webinars with other hubs. For example, SAR is quite active. And if you can make it, there's one for digital billing with a colleague from somewhere from the Nordics. So stay tuned and follow our events, then you'll stay informed. Of course, you can become a member. So MyData is always happy for supporters. I don't go through all the details. You find it right on the webpage of MyData. If you're interested, you find all the information there. And with that said, we are already coming to our program with our special guest, Paul Meyrat. As I said, we are making about half an hour presentation. It's rather informal, and then we have time for questions and a discussion, and we end at, well, after 1 hour sharp, so then turn off the camera, but Paul will be available for more questions if there's an interest. With that, I'm very glad to announce our evening star and guest speaker, Paul Meyrat, who is a sort of an evangelist, as I tend to say. So he is really selling digital transformation in the public sector for the city of Zurich. With that, Paul, thank you very much for taking the time, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for having me. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me, Pete. So I will show you a couple of slides on the use of data in a city administration. Today's program is as follows. First, I will introduce myself and my role within the municipality of the city of Zurich, and then I will talk about the importance of data in the context of the municipality and how data literacy can be increased. So about me, I'm a musician, but I'm also a lawyer. At least I used to be one. In the past, in the intersection between music and law is copyright law. So I started at a broadcasting corporation. It's something like the Swiss BBC, and there I was in charge of all things related to music. And the first big contract I have to deal with was the Voice of Switzerland, and then I was in charge of all the contracts. And you can imagine how contracts are processed in an old school corporation. It's signing on paper, it's sending internally, and if you want the contract to be signed, you have to wait about 2 to 8 weeks. So I decided to do something about it. I did a master's in digital management, and then I first digitized the legal services and got a role in the finance department as chief of staff of the CFO. And so I was able to make the digital transformation for finances, HR, and the building section. So I got a generalist view on digital transformation, and after that, I got the opportunity to to have the duty of digital transformation in the small city of Baden, and now I'm in Zurich, and I'm part of an incubator program that I will show you more on later. But why I'm telling you this, I'm not a data specialist, quite the opposite. As I said, I'm a musician, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a data guy, but I'm aware of the importance of data for digital transformation. And at the same time, I also speak the language of the business people in the administration, so I can translate the need that we need data to have a data-driven organization. But let's start. The pandemic also for the city of Zurich was a wake-up call. We have had to introduce a video conferencing application, Microsoft Teams. Welcome. The city council subsequently realized that the level of digitalization in the city administration was quite uneven. So we have people like Pete showed in the beginning that are still in the stone age of data-driven organizations, and we have on the other side, other departments that are really good in what they do. The program Digi Plus, in which I'm working, was created for this purpose. Our mission is to raise the level of digitalization in the city. We have consultants, we have service designers, developers, and project managers. The first step was the signing of the Digital Pact. The top management of the city administration were united here and signed the document and the process. The leadership principles were laid down, processes, trust, and learning culture. And that's where we are. And on top of that, the bosses pledged to receive me at least once. So I have the opportunity to go to every single department, to the heads of the departments, and have at least 1 hour to talk to them and to convince them to push digital transformation and to push digital literacy and data literacy especially. We have 3 objectives with Digi Plus. We consult, we enable, and we realize. And as I said, my job is to consult the heads of departments. When I go to them, I use this team wheel to visualize the various dimensions of digital transformation. And you can guess most departments only consider digital transformation in the areas of services and processes. So the topics of leadership and the topic of skills especially are often ignored. And yes, I think the leaders should have at least basic digital skills to at least understand what needs to be done. And I can tell you that that's not always the case. But I try to make the point. So my perception of digital transformation is that it is only subsidiarily a technological issue. Technology is there, of course, but the most important thing is how people deal with this technology. So I would therefore argue that digital transformation consists of 30% digital and 70% transformation. And of course, in my opinion, transformation also includes upskilling, especially in the field of data literacy. But let's go down to the nitty-gritty. What does data play and what role does data play in the management of a city? In principle, I advise all departments of the city of Zurich. This is just a small selection of them. In the city of Zurich, we have a total of 60 departments with almost 30,000 employees. We have thousands of teachers, policewomen, nurses, but also statisticians and project managers. What do I mean by that? There is no one data literacy that is equally relevant for all professional groups. Of course, we also have very different forms of competence, and we have a lot of different educational backgrounds. So in the first step, I would therefore like to outline the importance of data for public authorities. I will focus on the aspect of decision making. What does data management mean in the context of public authorities? It's the data collection and management, of course, data analysis and interpretation, data-driven decision making, and the use of data to inform policy and program development. Data collection and management in government agency refers to the process of gathering and organizing information from various sources and storing it and have it accessible to the people. The goal of data collection and management in government agencies is to provide accurate, relevant, and especially up-to-date information that can be used to support evidence-based decision-making, policy development, and program design. So the data collected by government agencies can come from a variety of sources, including, of course, administrative data. I will expand on this later, surveys, remote sensing, and social media. And yes, we do not collect social media data. We probably should. On the other side, managing this data may include cleaning it, storage, and organization, analysis, and dissemination. The value of administrative data is valuable for data management in government agencies because it provides a comprehensive and accurate picture of the population and the services they receive. Administrative data can also be linked across different government databases to provide a more comprehensive understanding of individuals and their interactions with government services. But of course, you always have to be wary of data privacy and make sure that you handle this data carefully. You don't want your social welfare data to be known by the policeman, for example. So we have different dimensions for collecting the data. You have data quality, that's important, data governance, privacy and confidentiality, as I said, data interoperability. As Pete mentioned beforehand, we have a very big issue in Switzerland as a federal system to have those data interoperable between the different levels of government. You have the team of data sharing and of course of data access. As we know, data is becoming increasingly important in decision-making processes, particularly in government agencies. With the vast amount of data available, it's essential for government agencies to be able to analyze and interpret it effectively to make informed decisions. However, data analysis and interpretation can also be complex and time-consuming, and there we need the skills. It requires the skilled professionals who are familiar with statistical methods and data analysis tools. But that's one part, that's the professionals, but we also need the data literacy, the ground data literacy with everyone. What does data-driven decision-making mean in the context of government agencies? Data-driven decision-making in government agencies refers to the practice of using data and evidence to inform and guide the decision-making processes of public sector organizations. The benefits of data-driven decision-making in government are numerous. By basing decisions on empirical evidence, government agencies can reduce the risk of making costly mistakes, improve the effectiveness of policies and programs, and increase public trust and transparency. Data-driven decision-making can also help government agencies to identify areas where they can make improvements, allocate resources more efficiently, and respond more quickly and effectively to emerging issues, let's say the pandemic. Additionally, advancements in technology and the availability of big data tools can help government agencies to collect, process, and analyze large and complex data sets more efficiently. Overall, data-driven decision-making in government agencies is an important tool for improving the quality and effectiveness of public policies and programs. The use of data to inform policy and program development is a crucial aspect of government agencies' decision-making process. When government agencies use data to inform policy and program development, they are seeking to design policies and programs that are evidence-based and data-driven. This means that policy decisions and program development are based on empirical evidence and analysis rather than intuition or personal opinion or gut feelings. The use of data to inform policy and program development has several other benefits. First, it helps to ensure that policies and programs are designed to meet the specific needs of the population they serve. Second, it helps to ensure that resources are allocated efficiently and effectively, as policies and programs are based on evidence of what works. And third, it promotes transparency and accountability, as policy decisions can be evaluated based on their impact and effectiveness. I would like to present to you some examples of the use of data in government agencies. I want to show you how data can be collected and analyzed and utilized by the agencies to make informed decisions, improve their operations, and better serve the needs of their citizens. So the first example is the recipients of social welfare. Data on the household structure of recipients of social welfare can be analyzed by government agencies in several ways. And analyzing this data on the long term, agencies can track changes in the demographics, income, and geographic distribution of these households. This can help agencies identify trends and patterns and develop policies and programs that are responsive to changing needs. The second example is the crime data analysis, and that's one of the most common uses of data in government agencies. Police departments use crime data to understand the nature and frequency of crime in their communities and to make decisions about how best to allocate their resources. For example, if a police department sees a pattern of burglaries in a particular neighborhood, they can increase patrols in that area to help prevent future crimes. Third example is birth rates. By analyzing birth rate data over time, government agencies can identify trends and patterns. For example, they may notice an increase or decrease in birth rates, change in the age of mothers, or difference between urban and rural areas. Once trends are identified, government agencies can investigate the causes of change in birth rates, and based on this, government agencies can make informed policy decisions, for example, with policies to encourage families to have more children, such as providing incentive for larger families or increasing access to childcare services. And the last example I have for you is the housing affordability. Analyze housing affordability is an important consideration for many people, especially in areas where house prices are high, like in Zurich, for example. Government agencies can use house building data to analyze affordability trends, such as changes in the ratio of house prices to income or changes in the availability of affordable housing. As you can see, there are many examples, and I could go on and on and on and start with the healthcare data. I go on the presentation. One of the biggest challenges with regard to the database service delivery of public authorities is the corresponding competences of the employees of the administration. With the digital transformation, we are currently experiencing a profound change in the way we work. There is relatively little fluctuation in the administration, and the staff tends to be older. In combination, this means that there are some gaps, especially in data skills. How can these be addressed? That's the big question. Improving data literacy in government agency can be challenging, but there are several strategies that can be used to enhance the data skills of employees. Here are some recommendations. You should offer training, of course. One of the most effective ways to improve data literacy is through training programs. Government agency can provide training sessions or courses on data analysis, visualization, and interpretation to help employees develop new skills. You can encourage the data use. Government agencies should promote the use of data in decision-making processes. This can be done by setting up policies that require the use of data to support decision-making, or by highlighting examples of successful data-driven decisions. You can improve the access to the data. This is a key component of data literacy. Government agencies can provide employees with access to relevant data sources, such as public data repositories or internal data systems, to encourage exploration and analysis. And then you should foster a data culture. To encourage data use and literacy, government agencies should foster a culture that values data. This can be done by celebrating successful data-driven decisions, recognizing employees who have made important contributions to data analysis, and creating a community of data enthusiasts. Simplify data communication. Government agencies should aim to make data communication more accessible and understandable. This can be done by using data visualization tools, creating dashboards that highlight key metrics, or presenting data in a clear and concise manner. You can partner with other agencies, and because government agencies that collaborate with other agencies have a strong literacy programs that help the employees to improve their own data literacy. Overall, improving data literacy in government agency requires a multifaceted approach that includes training, encouraging data use, access to data, and especially the data culture in the government agency. But there are reasons why data literacy programs may be unsuccessful. The first one I identified was a lack of clear goals and objectives. If the goals and objectives of the data literacy program are not well defined and communicated clearly, participants may not understand what they are expected to achieve or how to measure success. Insufficient training and support. Providing training on data literacy is not enough. There must be ongoing support and guidance to ensure that participants can apply their knowledge and skills in practice. Inadequate resources, of course. Data literacy programs require investment in resources such as technology, data tools, and personnel. Without adequate resources, it can be difficult to create an effective program. A very important one is the resistance to change. Some participants may resist the change that come with becoming data literate, such as adopting new processes or using new tools. Resistance to change can undermine the success of the program. The lack of relevance is also very important. I will expand on this one, but if the program does not align with the needs and priorities of the organization, participants may not see the value in it, which can lead to disengagement and low participation rates. Failure to measure success. It's essential to measure the success of data literacy programs and to identify areas of improvement and to demonstrate the program's impact. Without measuring success, it can be challenging to justify the investment in the program or to make adjustments to improve it. And last but not least, poor communication and engagement, communicating the importance of data literacy and and engaging participants in the program can be challenging. Without effective communication and engagement strategy, it can be difficult to motivate participants to participate fully and make the program a success. So let me expand on two specific subjects, the relevance and the communication. Making the case for data literacy. Data literacy programs aim to equip individuals with the skills to effectively work with and analyze data. A lack of relevance in these programs can hinder their effectiveness in a few key ways. Engagement. When data literacy programs don't provide examples or case studies that are relevant to the learner's work and personal lives, they may struggle to engage with the material. This lack of engagement can lead to disinterest and a lack of motivation to learn. Practicality. Learners may struggle to apply the concepts and skills they've learned in data literacy programs to their real-world work or personal situations if the examples and exercises provided are not relevant to their context. This can make it challenging to see the practical value of the program and limit the potential for learners to put their new skills into practice. And retention. When learners cannot see the relevance of the information presented, they may struggle to retain the information. Retention is important to ensure that learners can recall what they learned when they need it, such as when they encounter a data-related problem or opportunity in the future. Therefore, it is essential for data literacy programs to be relevant to the learner's needs, interests, and contexts. This can be achieved by tailoring the examples, case studies, and exercises to the learner's specific industries, roles, and goals. By doing so, learners are more likely to engage with the material, see the practical value of the program, and retain the knowledge and skills they've acquired. Another key issue is to frame the relevance to the management. Relevance can be framed in a few ways. I was the CFO, I was the chief of staff of a CFO. Then, of course, cost savings is always an argument. Government agencies are under increased pressure to be more efficient and effective with their resources. Data literacy programs can help agencies make better use of the data they collect, which can result in cost savings through improved decision-making, more effective programs and policies, and better resource allocation. Improved public service delivery. Many government agencies are responsible for delivering services to the public, such as healthcare, education, and social services. Data literacy program can help those agencies to collect and analyze data to better understand the needs of their constituents and deliver more targeted, effective services. Compliance and risk management. Government agencies are often subject to legal and regulatory requirements such as data protection and privacy laws. So data literacy programs can help agencies understand and comply with these regulations, as well as manage risk related to data breaches and other security threats. Last but not least, accountability and transparency. Government agencies are accountable to the public for their actions and decisions. Data literacy programs can help agencies collect and analyze data to better understand and communicate their performance and demonstrate their accountability and transparency to the public. By framing the relevance of data literacy programs in these ways, government agency can better understand the value of investing in these programs. It's also important to tailor the examples and the exercises in the program to the specific needs and goals of the agencies. So, communicating data literacy. The first factor to consider when developing communication materials is the target audience. Understanding the interests of the audience may be improving, emphasizing, the relevance of the information to the audience's lives. One approach to enhancing the relevance of data could be breaking down high-level data into more specific data so that users can access those most relevant to them. Putting data into context involves ensuring statistics are always contextualized to that audiences can comprehend their significance. Relevant aspects could be the source of data or relevant comparators. Language, use simple and easy to understand language. That says it all. Format, choose your format and frequency according to the goals of the communication. You can easily overwhelm your audience by choosing a too complex format or by communicating too frequently. But at the same time, consistency is also very important. Framing. Minor changes in the wording of information can have important implication on how it is perceived. Framing is an important issue in healthcare, and one clear example of this is the choice of survival rate versus mortality rate when conveying risk information. Trust, I would recommend include information in statistical communication that helps users to understand whether it should be trusted. Relevant information may include who produced the statistical information and how it was produced. Uncertainty, admitting uncertainty in data is one of the recommendations. Take data on GDP, on growth figures, or take data on immigrants. We have actual very big topic in Switzerland. We have a lot of people coming from all parts of the world, especially Ukraine in the moment, and we don't have that certainty how many people will come, and basing the prognosis on these numbers is very difficult, but we still have to manage to get them a bed for everyone who is coming. Last but not least, visualization, make it simple and use multiple formats to suit different audience groups. Just don't over-rely on three-dimensional bars. try to make communication simple, try to go where your audience is, and try to use the language they use. It was me in a nutshell on data literacy in the administration of the city of Zurich.
Thanks a lot, Paul. That was indeed very impressive. I would like to start out with a comment on your 30-70% slide, so 30% digital and 70% transformation. I would rather make it 10-90. So as I usually say, it's a lot of mindset shift. And technology is usually there, but the difficult part is really to catch everybody and to achieve this mindset shift. And with that, I would like to start out with my first question. You mentioned it already. You are offering some training, and if I think everybody agrees, if you learn to ride a bike or drive a car, you don't learn that from presentations. You definitely have to do it. I'm hearing you have some practical exercises. I would be interested about the coverage. So are you addressing everybody in the organization, or is it just for a certain part? And the second follow-up question is, what's the acceptance or adoption rates for those who are presented with these practical exercises? How far do they accept it?
That's a very complex question, Pete. Of course, we have several formal trainings, go to the Power BI training, things like that. I don't think that those are the most effective. We're trying out a new format. We may make a data governance and analysis sprint in 3 weeks, where we try to figure out the use cases they have in the departments. When we have the backlog of the use cases, then we try to develop a data governance on this basis, and then we make it design thinking, like we try to prototype those things. I think this is a very good way to teach this information, because it has this relevance to the people. But the other question you ask is to whom we may give those trainings. The ones that I can persuade in my consulting. So it's a very tiny fraction. It's not so that we are doing this systematically.
The reason why I'm asking this question, I'm also coming from the data side. I'm trying to communicate these principles for about 30 years, and I know how difficult it is. So the design sprint is definitely a good idea. I understand you're only reaching a small fraction of your target audience, but usually the ones who don't participate, those are the ones who would probably need it most.
You're right, but I have a very good track record on exactly this target group. The people that are the lawyers, the financial people, that's the people I perceive as more conservative on such topics, and I'm from their world, so I can't talk to them. I have a very good example just now, but I can't tell you the names.
Yeah, I can guess it's not always easy, but obviously you're talking their language. That's actually quite an important point. So I have written down a number of questions, but I would like to open the audience for further questions. So are there questions from the audience here? Don't hesitate to open the microphone and ask it directly. We are a rather small group today. So Oleg is on the call. Oleg, just ask your question.
Yeah, hey Paul, great presentation. I was, I've been trying to promote data literacy for years through projects like School of Data at Open Data Zurich. Wondering what kind of roadmap you see in the future for organizations from the civil society sector, helping you to source trainers or to maybe certify trainers who are part of your projects. What kind of ideas you have in that area?
Thanks for your question. It's not that easy. We have specialists on this topic. I'm working for the IT at the city of Zurich, and we have a whole section with about 6 or 7 people working on data overall, but data literacy is also their subject, and they having a hard stand. They don't get the attention they should in the management. So having a program to certify people in the different departments of the whole city, I don't see it yet. I have to admit that I don't see it yet. I'm struggling to have super users for Office 365. So that's the place where I am. I'm not yet talking about really data literacy. I'm talking about let the people use Teams. That's the overall answer.
Coming back to Oleg's point, Oleg, do you have any recommendation how it could be done? I know you're doing a lot of things in this area.
I am doing things with the city of Zurich, like Make Zurich. This is going to be a hackathon in June with EVZ and like the energy department.
Okay.
And that's a kind of a low budget, potentially high impact effect to get community participation in areas of concern for the city, like smart city topics, transparency topics, and I think it's just creating good meeting points, workshops, Stammtisch. There used to be a really good Stammtisch for open government data in the city of Zurich. Maybe that could be a really simple format, kind of regular meetups between interested people. But I totally hear you. I mean, here in Bern we have the same. I mean, rollout of one app per year, kind of. That seems to be the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a critical point. You have the specialist persons, the person that are interested. They will find a community to talk to. They will go to the Stammtisch. They will go to any kind of online communities too. But to have that skills on a broader platform, I think that's the difficult part. So to have every secretary, to have every teacher, every nurse in the city, to have at least a very basic data literacy, that's the real struggle.
Yeah, I think that I think to your points about data protection being a real massive concern since the pandemic, and with every year people are more and more aware of this, and I think we'll have organizations like Algorithm Watch, or Posmo. I mean, things like ProVelo does in the velo safety area, gaining more popular support in the cybersecurity and also data skills area, and I think there will be a lot of spillover for that. But there's no real shortcuts. I don't think you can become a data scientist overnight. But we do have, maybe hope for like a new generation of citizens who are, pushing for education in schools and, and being aware of the power that having insight into government processes and being part of that democratic process of, participation at that level. Being attractive and important aspect of life. That's my hope.
Maybe one short commercial. I mentioned André Gollier, and I have to say, André Gollier is really a data person, and one of his activities, he's sort of the father of the data hack days here in Switzerland. And Oleg is actually the good soul who is running the infrastructure to make that possible. So these hack days are basically a 2-day event. It's free for everybody, so everybody who is interested can attend. There are challenges with really practical exercises. So everybody has the chance to get their hands dirty if they want. And I think in the meantime, there are about 4, 5, or 6 such data hack days available in Switzerland, all over the cantone. The next one is in Uri, then there will be one in Bern, if I'm right. So I put a link in the show notes. You can check. For those who are interested, you can check it out. And the other thing is, I think that's the Stammtisch, which was mentioned by Oleg, is the open data beer. So
exactly, yes.
and it's quite regularly. I think about every 2 or 3 months it's taking place. It's a physical event if it's possible, and you meet like-minded people. This one is not so much and doing things, it's more a presentation, but you can exchange your information there. So these maybe that's something what you can promote in your environment as well, Paul. Those who are interested are welcome to join there.
Thank you so much. And it's definitely not just me. There's a lot of people involved in maintaining infrastructure and improving standards. And it's actually a very international community as well. I mean, we're very connected to what's going on in Europe, and MyData is one of the communities that's really kind of global in reach and very supportive.
A few more questions which I would like to ask. How much is management involving itself? So I know managers have a tendency to delegate these sort of tasks. So they hand it over to their specialists, but the idea would be that they get some hands-on experience. So how much is your management in the city of Zurich getting their own hands dirty and just instead of just delegating to somebody else?
I think we have a quite digital literate council. In Zurich, we have good politicians, the ones that run the city. The other question is the heads of the departments. And as I said, there are 60 different departments, and we have very, very data savvy heads of departments and others that they think they're not concerned. That's the main thing. So I don't think they're against the use of data, but they don't exactly know what's the benefit to them. So in those departments, it's much more difficult to have the involvement of the management itself. They will tell you, okay, let's do that program with my people, but I don't really care. And in other areas, the social department especially, is a very good example. They have people in charge that really care. And so that's much easier to do a program there. You have the communications, you know, that the director or the vice director will stand there and he will make the short video and tell people, hey, that's important. I want my department to do that. So that's a really plus, and you know him or her to have these skills too. So it's not only he or her telling the people to do it, so it's he or her doing actually things with data.
That's actually true leadership, so leading by example.
Yeah, exactly.
An interesting follow-up question. So for those who feel it's not relevant for them, is there an increasing peer pressure? So since their colleagues are already dealing with these new possibilities?
I think so. As I mentioned, we have a rather older workforce, and you have some people, not only heads of departments, overall in the management of the city, some older people, and there are some that say, okay, I have 2 years to go, and then I go into retirement. I don't really care, but that's the minority, a very, very tiny minority. I think most people are aware that they have to, and they are perhaps afraid that they have to, and they don't find the access to the subject. There's where my position, my colleagues and I come into place and try to simplify the whole subject, to say, okay, it's not that hard. We just have to start. And if we start now, we don't have to finish tomorrow. We have to go on the long run. And if you go into retirement in 2 years, it's still 2 years. And you can't let your people down now for the next 2 years. And that's a message I think it's get well received.
That's good to hear. So talk, as you mentioned, is more senior people quite a few times. I would like to tell you a funny anecdote from a totally different area. So, you know, in these parking lots of or the parking garages of Co-op and so on, you have these systems with the tickets. And now they have also a system with license plate recognition. You can store your license plate, then you drive in, the gate opens, the drive out, gate opens again, and you're charged based on your core points or whatever. So whenever I have a chance, of course I have set it up, whenever I have a chance, I remind people on the ticketing machine that they can do that automatically. And I was doing that recently for a young lady, somewhere 30 years old maybe. I told her, if you want to avoid tickets, you can set up your license plate, and then you don't have to pay for the tickets anymore. And then her answer was, I know, my grandmother told me already several times that I should try that out.
Yeah, I think it's that's a cliche that older people are those that don't get access to the whole digital literacy. In my opinion, my best example was my paralegal at my older workplace at the television where I was. She was 62, and she was the one automating the whole legal services. And she tried it out. It was citizen development style. It was on Power Automate, but she made it. And she learned it by herself by looking at YouTube clips. So that's a good example. And on the other hand, you have people like the 30-year-old woman or my woman, my wife, that is not interested in those topics.
You are actually making a very good statement, which we could almost use as a closing statement, learning to automate. So obviously your leader who wanted to automate regardless of the age. Specifically in Switzerland, with all these negotiations with the EU and the high salary levels which you want to maintain, maybe one argument which you could bring to your more resistant partners, Switzerland as a high salary country cannot afford to do things manually which can be automated. We are just too expensive for manual work. So whatever can be automated should be automated. And if you think about it, this gives you more time for the more creative jobs. So you have capacity to think about things which cannot be automated. That's usually, I was in finance, I'm in the healthcare now, and a lot of people are talking about artificial intelligence and making bankers or medical doctors redundant. I think we are far away from that. But I think if you have a good assistant which helps these specialists in their daily tasks, then everybody can benefit a lot from such solutions. So that's possibly the way to go.
Mm-hmm. So of course, but to automate, you need the data.
Absolutely. And I have one comment. I was just listening to a podcast about the healthcare system, the comparison between Switzerland and Sweden. And in Sweden, interestingly, everything is totally transparent. So you can, and the Nordics have a totally different culture towards the data. I'll put a link in the show note. You can listen to it. In Sweden, everything is very transparent, so they can run analytics about most of their developments. While in Switzerland, and that was the statement of the person who knows both countries, in Switzerland, a lot of decisions are based on gut feelings and emotions, so it's not truly fact-based. So that's possibly something what we can learn from other countries. The Swiss culture was the statement is people don't like if other people are knowing too much about them. We are coming to an end. We have briefed a few things.
The most important thing is to start now, to have programs in every department and on all levels to improve that literacy. It doesn't really matter if you have already pros or you have only people starting with it. You have to improve that literacy really on a broad scale. So what needs to be done now is the decisions on the political, but also in the heads of the departments that this needs to be done and needs to be implemented. And like digital transformation overall in the public sector, I think you need to hire people with that knowledge that can be introduced in their organization.
Yeah. What should be different from today, and what do we need to decide today to get there?
I think in 5 years, you should have a data-driven decision-making as a standard on management level in the city of Zurich, and to do that you should have the data infrastructure, data governance in place. So if you want to have this in 5 years, you have to start now, because government agencies are slow.
Okay, that sounds like a good summary. So this closes the official part. Very interesting. Thanks a lot, Paul, for being with us. And very happy to see you next time.